Hello, welcome to the Off Grid dev stream once again. Man, Gatto Roboto is quite nice so far, Spy says. Gatto Roboto, what's that a reference to? My name's Rich. We run the Off Grid dev stream. We make Off Grid. Off Grid's a moddable stealth hacking game. We've got Spy in the chat saying hi, and they were asking some questions about modding in the Discord earlier. So I'm looking forward to following up on those and talking about app systems. I think that's probably the direction we'll probably go in. So Spy, welcome. Welcome for everyone else who's watching on various other channels, whether you're on Twitch, on Steam Broadcast, whether you're watching us on YouTube Live or Facebook. It's good to have you here. Yeah, let's get round to learning a bit more about modding in Off Grid. One of the things that I do tend to do, as well as turning off the starting soon text once I've started, is I tend to talk a bit about the game as a whole, just to give people a feel for what it is and what it's about, in case they haven't seen or they haven't played the demo or they've only seen the trailer or something along those lines. So let's do that briefly. What I'm going to do is I'm probably going to try and show you a bit of a demo directly in a nice sort of testing scene that Pontus, my co-dev and co-conspirator, set up. So just get everything lined up nicely first. If I just look to switch over this way. Yeah, basically Off Grid is moddable in quite an interesting way, really. It's set up so that you can download a copy of Unity, the free version of Unity, and use all of our development tools that we use inside Unity for modding the game with. So that includes a bunch of custom editor tools that we've built. Those are over in the bottom right hand corner. Is it your right hand corner? They're over this way. You see, a bit further. If I moved over to the middle of the screen, you'd see me better. But yeah, on the right hand side of the screen, we have this level kit tool. Actually, I was thinking about using one of these magnifiers to. Yeah, maybe I should be doing that. Let's move this out of the screen. Can you do that? Maybe you can't. Cool. So that's this down here. We can do all kinds of stuff with this. This gives you kind of, maybe don't want it zoomed out quite as much as this. Well, not 100%. 100% is. Look at what? There's got to be an option between 100% and 200%, surely. No, there isn't. Okay. Never mind. I think that's going to be more annoying than than not. We have this basic set of stuff that you can. Typical Windows, Spy says. Yes, typical Windows. What a ridiculously unusable tool. You define your level name, your level description. You connect to Workshop if you want to upload your mods to Workshop, and we've got these validation checks in here. It's quite fun. Lots of stuff going on here. We've also got an AI Explorer, and I'll show you all a bit more of that as we go. But without further ado, what we do is we connect this secondary Unity project that has all of the kind of the tools that a level designer such as myself or Pontus would be using while building Off-Grid's core content. We connect that with the game, and that can be the version of the game that you launch from your Steam key from Steam, you know, literally just the exe, or in our case it can be the then mainline project, the stuff that has the core source code and feature development in C#. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that this way around. That keeps us kind of up to date, if that makes sense, because we've got a new build due in the coming weeks for our public builds. It should be starting to run. Here we go. All right. So this is the game running in the background here. There's the current levels. What we would do is then run over to here to the networking tab. We click search for game, and basically that with some local networking, TCP over IP, finds a hook into this copy of the game, and then when we hit start, it sends a patch, essentially a set of asset bundles over from this editor to this one, and then that launches the mod that we're working on, or it should. There we go. And so if you haven't seen Off-Grid before, this is Off-Grid. Now, one of the fun things that you can do when you are making mods is cheat, because that's the whole point of being able to mess around with the core code in the game, or in a game that you're modding, is to be able to tweak it to your liking, make it easier when you need it to be. So we've got this Ghost app that I use quite frequently. You might find even in the final game we're probably going to keep some of these dev laptops lying around. This is what we use to essentially get our dev cheats up. We have s01ep as limited developer consoles, where you can set the door access to admin and set the networks that you're on up. You can set the player always invisible or to always ragdoll for a bit of fun. Or we can go to the music track and change the soundtrack. Turn off whether your music is attracting guards. That's something new that Pontus must have added. I'm not sure what that does. I'm not going to turn it on. So, if you haven't seen Off-Grid before, then this is data view. Basically, the premise is your character, this gormless dad Joe, is a bit of a noob, never hacked before, not really into that kind of thing, not really into technology at all, but his daughter is a hacktivist, and she gives you a set of glasses, kind of AR glasses, that you can visualize data and networks through. And so what we have below is all the data that's being put down by different NPCs and ourselves over the networks that we're connected to. I quite like this testing facility. We basically built a big kind of hangar with a load of offices and a load of big space that we could test drones inside of even, but also throw NPCs around in. We do have a bit of a buggy NPC potentially in this level at the minute, but we'll see how that works out. Oh no, he's up there. So yeah, this is Off-Grid. essentially the name of the game is collect as much data on your adversaries as possible. And you can do that by just sniffing packets as you go through each level, or you can go on to try and SSH into various hackable devices around the world. So these vending machines aren't currently hackable, they haven't been set up to be. I'll go and find something that is. Password known for the server terminal. So, like we SSH'd into the developer console earlier, this is us finding that's interesting. Server management database backup. s01ep Limited Server OS. Insert removable drive to create a backup. Interesting. Might have to go and get to that. This is kind of fun because Pontus has been adding some stuff as he tested in the level here recently, and so it's new to me as well. Oh, there's a key card on the table. Always good to find key cards on the table. Computer 101. So feel free to ask questions as we go, folks who are tuning in. Spano Spy, like, you had some really cool questions to ask as we were chatting on the Discord earlier. So feel free to chime in and interrupt. I'm going to leave this format for this episode kind of quite open-ended, and try and just elaborate on some of the things that people want to hear more about. So I'm more than up for Q&A, and otherwise in the meantime we can start by looking at some things like the app system. That's going to be an interesting one for me because it's a system in Off Grid that I've had much less exposure to than Pontus, who wrote it, because we haven't really been pushing its boundaries all that far. We've written some nice little tools, but generally speaking, it's been Pontus who's done that. So I'll be learning alongside you, but maybe that's quite a nice way of doing it. I'll have to dig into the documentation, see whether the documentation is any good. As you can see, we keep getting these tweets come up. We have an app called Flutter in the game now, where you can essentially pick up on the social media practices of NPCs in the game and in the level you're in and in the world outside, which can be used to great effect for working out who is being tricked into what. So that's kind of cool. What we can probably do is look at some of the code for apps like Flutter, and I think the Ghost app is a good one that sets the player to invisible. And we'll just look at how you add and remove apps that you have created yourself, and how you can then further extend them as hacking tools within the game. Bear with me, I may well bump into some stuff I don't know the answers to, because like I said, this is something that Pontus is much more the architect of, and in the levels I've been building so far, I actually haven't gotten round to using the extensibility here. And it's partly because we made Off Grid with the view that we wanted it to be far more extensible than we would necessarily use ourselves. We felt like if we made tools that were more advanced than we'd use, then modders would be able to come up with more interesting content than us, and they'd be able to surprise us. And then we get to play interesting levels in Off Grid that we'd never thought of, and in a selfish kind of way get to enjoy it ourselves. Oh, there we go, that's that server rejecting us. I see, server wreck. Right, there's the console. room speaker system. Save game. Yeah, so we've moved some of the game progress stuff into the Lua API, so you can save a game from any command, anything important that happens. It doesn't just have to be tied to an objective. So this says, insert a removable drive to create a backup. I do have the USB drive, even if we're missing the image for it. Does that work? Do I have a backup now? Not sure. What about here? Don't know what that's supposed to do at the minute. I have to check with Pontus. Talking about checking with Pontus, what I'm going to do is jump over to the Discord just in case anyone's in there saying hello, and I might actually throw up IRC as well just to see if McFly and a few of the others are around. Cool. So let's talk modding. Spano said basically what I was going to ask next. Continue on. Oh, what I was saying in regards to the apps and the tool system. Cool. Well, let's try and work out where to start, because that's what we need to do, and the way that you as a modder would work out where to start modding a particular system in Off Grid would be by going straight to the wiki. So that's what I'm going to have to do as well, in order to learn a bit about the app system along with you. So we would probably go to the Lua API tab, or maybe even just the modding category. Apps Lua API, potentially. Well, that'll definitely have some of it, but that's just a generated page. Wonder whether there might be a page on not mission scripting, light and shadow mechanics, house hackable objects, getting started with level kit, Flutter API. That's cool. I haven't even looked at that yet. Spectrum, scheduler, sound, pre-made Apple devices. I could swear that he did something on creating apps. There you go. Let's look at that. Well, let's get a bunch of these up, because creating apps, Flutter API, and the apps Lua API. All three of those are going to be useful. Creating apps. Quite a lot of documentation here, so let's try and make sure I'm not just reading out loud to you. So the main tool the player has in Off Grid, apart from a clever mind and smooth stealth skills, of course, is the apps running on the player's phone. So those are the things that we've already had a look at here. You've got moving left to right. The intention there is that those are apps that you're running on your phone, and your phone is connected to your glasses, so you can see an AR overlay of them. So these apps allow for both the viewing and interacting with all devices and data in the levels. The app system's built to allow creating all kinds of new tools, both very generic and very powerful ones, but also small quality of life tools that just do some small, very specific task that makes it more convenient to the player. An example, I mean, there's loads of cool examples actually. We have some silly stuff like, oh, they're probably not in here. Yeah, he's just got the important stuff in here. We have silly stuff like the clock. It's in world time. In world time is 3 times faster than real time. You know, you might have objectives tied to time. We've got the helper app that actually looks for an object's name and tells you the distance of something that's in the same room as you. That's kind of pretty much quality of life. It's to make things easier if you're struggling. We've got the light monitor that gives you what shadow you're in, whether you're hidden or not. Yeah, there's loads of stuff. We may have to go and mess about with a Lua script or two to show you the full extent of some of the smaller things. But heading back to the wiki, on the game side, we handle the controls, the app inventory, and the other boring common tasks that are automatically. And we also keep track of the app use costs. So each app that you are in the middle of using to kind of make your way through Off-Grid it has a specific cost that affects the trace time stuff that you've seen in the bottom right hand corner. So see the kind of nodes to the left above oh, you can't actually, we're just cutting off screen, aren't we? Let's shift that over slightly. There we go, it's better. There's sort of a set of nodes there on the left hand side, and then there's this bar that fills up, and as you use data view for too long, it eats up one of those nodes. And the idea is that you can extend those nodes by performing certain tasks, adding to essentially your proxy chain, and if you use them all up, then it cuts you off data view for your own safety so that you can't be tracked. But that all being said, you can still end up leaving data around that gets you traced, so you do have to be careful. So yeah, those are kind of internally, from a design perspective, we're calling those net points, and the different hacking tools that you use different amounts of net points. So this profiler tool uses 1, so you can see, you turn that on, you get a little red mark for that being used. I don't think there's anything in here that uses otherwise, so you know that will slow down the amount of time that you can be in data view. Oh, I was going to shift over to here. So yeah, on the game side, we keep track of that app cost and whether the player is able to use an app at the moment or not. So what is left to the modder is just the specific way of how your app should work and what elements of the mechanics it should or shouldn't affect. This page on the wiki is supposed to explain what goes into an app's Lua script, but also give more ideas and for getting more ideas and examples, worth looking at the existing apps that are included in the game. You'll find them in Streaming Assets, Common Apps folder. So basically, on your copy of the game, you would be able to jump into, let me just find it. I think it's here. Streaming Assets. Oh no, hang on. No, that's not on the actual app. Let's do this differently. If you jumped into Steam, and you went to the library, and from there you went to Off-Grid, went to the files, browse local files, off-grid data, streaming assets, common, then apps. That gives you the list of the current apps. So, you know, like we talked about earlier, we've got the profiler or the weather app. This is actually a fairly limited list at the moment. A lot of the other apps we have are actually level specific ones that I've thrown directly into levels themselves rather than common. But just by looking at a few of these scripts in Lua, you'll get an impression of how an app is set up and some of the things you can play with them in the API. Just wait for this to load. Oh, that's weird. Atom is way off screen somewhere. Don't do this to me. Windows! Oh, how do you do this? Is that right? Wait, Atom. Oh, it's still off screen. Show this window on all desktops. Snap left. No, still not there. What about? Does anyone remember how you do this? Atom's like completely off screen. Well, if anyone remembers how you fix that, that would be handy. Maximize, close, minimize, move. No, that didn't do anything, I think. Oh, hang on. No. No. Alright, well, fuck it. I'm gonna open it with Notepad++ instead then. Cool, so that is essentially what an app looks like. It's not a lot of code, is it? So the name of the app, description, its cost, like we talked about before, whether it's available on starting up, you know, whether it's available at the start of the game, or whether it needs to be enabled within the level or with something that you do within the level. The PNG for the icon. Whether it shows in the radial or in the app wheel, those are two kind of different things that we can go into in a bit. The color of the icon, the status icon, which is the kind of, well, it's the icon that goes up in the top left-hand corner. I can show you that easily here. All that list of things up in the top left-hand corner, you've got the clock, whether all of the networks were on, whether the Ghost app is on, the light meter, and the profiler icon. Those are your statuses, and if you turn them off, they'll drop away. Sorry, I've got a bit of a snivel. So yeah, and then on state change, I mean, My monitor's trying to power off. Been working too long, monitor. On state change, if state equals app state on, then player.setInvisible true. Create status window, set status icon color, display status window, else if app state off or state equals app state dot unavailable, then player.setInvisible false. Remove status window. App state equals state, set state app dot state. So I mean, like those two bits are the important logic that you need to be bearing in mind. This just basically sets a status icon and creates a window for it and sets the player to invisible, and that you could change that to like anything in the API at all, but like let's say anything in the player API. So we might go back here, and they're in player lure API. Add item to inventory, clear inventory, add data file, item in quick slot, has encrypted file, get data string, get all data file names, send data, get social profile size, social profile contains tag, add social profile information, get name's not that useful in this instance, set ragdoll on, set invisible, and you know this will continue to expand, but that's just a list of things that you can use within the player API. Instead of set invisible, you can set it to ragdoll. That could be your make off-grid physics again. Or you can do something far more advanced with data points within the Spectrum API. That's all kind of going on at the minute. We've started to set up filters so that you can set up data or visualize data based on certain filters that you've created. So those are just a couple of examples. You know, like it's then your job to play the game, wonder about whether you can do something interesting with a particular feature, and then pump it into your app and play around with it, really. So yeah. Any questions as I'm going, please feel free to chip in. So yes, back to creating apps. Example app, how to make your first app for off-grid, has a cost of 2 net points. It targets data. It shows in the Radial. It shows by default in the app menu. Its state is off. It's got your example app PNG. It's a blue color. It has 2 different status icons. So this is interesting, isn't it? You know, already there's 2 options that are being set up, and options we haven't even really jumped into yet. But essentially there's 2 things an app can do. It can have active settings and passive settings in many ways, you know, so that we call those actions and options. So an action in an app is something that it does the minute you press interact with it, or the minute you kind of turn it on to do something. And then the options are things like filters or sort of changing the rules as to how it behaves. So an example would be you've got an app that targets data, and its action is to do a thing when a button is pressed when you've targeted a certain type of data. Its options might be delete or save. you know, and you just switch the functionality around with the options. So actions, default action in third person mode, executing the app will always trigger the first action. Extra action in radial menu mode, if there's more than one action, triggering the action opens a menu to select which action to take. So to give you a bit more of an understanding of that, we have your regular kind of third person mode is what he's saying, and I wonder whether I can get something that's got, oh, there you go, there's options, display, Spectrum's got data display options. I don't know which apps we have that have multiple actions actually. Pardon me. Wonder whether there's anything. Fly Swatter might. Either way, Fly Swatter. Oh no, that's SSHing. Let's turn SSH off. Turn profiler off. Turn light back off. Light. Okay. Getting there now. So, the Fly Swatter app, I think, targets data. It'll only let us delete drone data. It's an app specially made for deleting drone data. There aren't any drones in this level, so it won't let us do it. But to give you more of an impression of how the kind of notion of there you go, this is the radial menu, and so if an app had multiple options, none of these apps have multiple options. Data utility have multiple options? No. Okay, well, that's that then. We'll have to enable one with multiple options, but that's the radial menu. The radial menu is what basically sets you up for being able to do more advanced commands, you know, using apps that have multiple commands and doing more interesting stuff with your tools. So that's what we're talking about there when we talk about secondary actions or lists of actions. Options, some other option. This runs when the option is toggled. On state change, this runs when something on the game side asks the app to change its state. App state equals state, set state, app state. Update actions, if you want to change available actions based on the target player has selected, do it here. So you can make an app that behaves differently depending on whether it is targeting a device or a character or a piece of data or maybe even something else. And then the update function, like if you want to do something in update continuously, then that's where you do it. Obviously there's going to be a performance hit by running anything complex in update, but it's there for you to do. Right, there you go. There's a table describing all these things. Oh, pardon me. I need to stop yawning. Sorry. I always do this because this stream is, as someone in the Discord, I think it was Quantum, was saying, it's a bit late for people in Europe, but we're trying to bridge the gap for those of you in the US as well. So yeah, there's a list of stuff for you to then go and fiddle around with. Essentially, that's all of this in more detail. You know, target type equals data, target type equals a hackable object or a character. So it should include an individual target or a list of them. If you don't include anything, the game will use target types none by default, allowing the app to work when no target is selected. For sake of clarity, it's recommended to define that in the app script anyway. So yeah, for clarity, basically it will default to type none, but you should put it in here if that's how you want it to behave. Yeah, I mean, those are the basics there. So I mean, what we could do is just try and make an app, I guess. Not going to make anything bonkers, I don't think. Partly because I don't know whether I'm capable of it, to be honest, first time around. I had made some kind of fun stuff before. I guess I have made some apps. I'll show you an app I have made. It's pretty boring, but it shows you, the basics of things you can do, and we'll try and extend it, and then the kind of basic setup stuff isn't what I'm taking you through, but more the interesting side of things. Okay, so we're going to load a different level. We're going to go open scene here, levels, oh, hang on. Yeah, do that one. Yeah. So in this level, wow, music seems a bit loud in my ears. By the way, tell me if I've got all the audio levels completely wrong here and you can't hear anything properly. Yeah, I'm going to have to turn the music down, otherwise I'm not going to hear anything. Right, so we've opened up a new level. This is the workplace level. You might have seen me working on this previously. We hit start, and then that will network this level to the game. So I've seen we've got a couple of questions in here from SpanoSpy. SpanoSpy says, just a thought, is it possible for an app to have a screen menu when used, something like a terminal or overlay with buttons? Yes, in a really limited fashion at the moment. It's something that we will look to extend. I've just realised this level I'm going to show you a horrible bug. There's this weird visual bug that's just in this level at the minute. Look at those weird, I don't know what I've done to create that, but it doesn't matter. We're going to look at apps anyway. The answer, SpanoSpy, is yes. The answer is also, it's very limited at the moment. Oh, hang on, I'm going to try and fix this quickly. I think it might be an asset bundles thing. Right, off grid, asset bundles, build, standalone, compressed. I've got a couple of apps that do bring up little modal windows instead of the full-on kind of terminal, why don't we? I don't know whether it'll break it or not. We might be able to load up a terminal. Let's see whether we can load up a terminal. If we can't, I'll show you how a basic dialogue with two options like yes, no, that then fire something else can be launched. And we can put a card down for a request for it. So I don't know whether you have seen when I've posted this in the Discord before, but we have a Trello board that's public for people to file bugs, request features, request more documentation on a particular element of the game. And that is here. Actually, I should pop that in there. Yeah, so feel free to find this page. I will bung it in the chat there for you. Essentially, yeah, as we're going through this, if you think of some specific options that you'd like to see for being able to launch a screen or a menu or a terminal or an overlay that I'm not describing properly, I'd really love it if you then add it in as a feature request or a Lure API request, and basically we'll take note of it, and we'll see how viable it is to add in. If it's really quick, it might go in quickly. If it's feasible but not high priority, it might go in as a post-release update, and if it's really crazy, then we'll tell you straight away, but we'll tell you why it's crazy and whether it's possible to wind the idea back in to something that's realistic. So yeah, let's have a look though. I'll try and show you. So still building asset bundles. This does always take a mo. I probably need. Hang on, it wasn't all level kit levels that was doing it, was it? Keep asking me questions, especially while I'm building asset bundles, because I can't really show you anything while I'm building asset bundles without risking breaking something while it compiles. Spano Spy, have you got any like particular examples in mind for like what you want to do with that terminal or overlay, so that I can then go, oh, this would work for that then? Or do you know, like in your head, what's the hacking tool or app that you're thinking you'd like to attempt to make, and how would a terminal or overlay or menu help it? Obviously, we've got the latency of the stream, so I'll leave that question hanging there, and type away when you get to a thought come in. Compiling shaders. I should probably put some music on in the background so you don't end up with me singing. The worst thing is I'm going to have to do this twice, because I have to do it for the mainline project and for the level kit modding project. I do. So many shaders to compile. I'm supposed to like tell jokes or talk to myself at this point, aren't I? I'm really bad at jokes, is the worst part of it. Like I basically became a dad, and jokes went right out the window. Like I wasn't great at them before, but now I just can't tell them at all. Hulkman asks, how will building the level geometry playfield work? That's a really good question, and that is something I can kind of show you a bit of while we're waiting for the shaders to compile. Basically, it's made out of a sort of set of props and prefabs that you can either drag and drop in as pre-made rooms, or completely create from scratch, or if you're comfortable with kind of 3D tooling, I suppose is the right word, then we've actually integrated Pro Builder, so you can essentially drag and drop and move. Why is that? What's that doing? move faces and vertices around. You know, you can literally stretch your walls about, you know, block a room off with that, add a face here, add a face there. Or more simply, if kind of 3D modeling isn't your bag, we have what we're calling collections, which are here in the collections folder. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to load all of them up right now for you to see. You just drop them into your scene so that it loads all of those scenes concurrently, all at once. That might take a moment to load. It should be doing it though. Yeah, it is doing it. It's just taking a minute. I have just asked it to open 13 scenes. Oh, we got some missing materials. That's I'll take a little screenshot of that and send it to our artist Soph. The magenta of death. There we go, that's just gone into the team Slack. So yeah, I mean, like basically you have these collections of props that you can drop in, you know, different door sizes, heights, types, all kinds of manner of bits and pieces. I think somewhere along here there's some collections of rooms themselves, you know, like chairs, seats, tables, cupboards, sofas, filing cabinets, toilets, sinks, showers, fridges, ovens, extractor fans, diggers, forklifts, rubbish trucks, elevators, gambling tables, the hotel beds, vans, stairs, weird stairs. Not sure what that is at all. Some round stuff. Oh, that's those. Yeah, that's that needs moving. That's definitely the wrong place. Containers, shipping containers, fences with holes in them. Missing materials on brick tubes, metal piping, metallic things. Basically, you've got all these kind of elevators. I assume those move. Elevators and teleporting characters around is a thing. Yeah, we'll see. We've kind of actually, specifically in the game's language, avoided too much shifting a character up and down on a physical platform. But you can cheat it, and that's, you'll see. The elevators themselves don't move, the player does. As you'll find when you're making your mods, smoke and mirrors is often the fastest way of getting something done. So that's all the bits and bobs. Well, not quite all of them, anyway. What we're going to now do is we'll unload all of these scenes, and then I'll show you there's actually some pre-built rooms as well that you can also use if you're not inclined. Hopefully that unloads all of those. If you're not inclined to do the kind of piecing everything together lark, yeah, sorry, Spanish Bar, you'd asked a couple of questions. I guess I was just thinking about how much an app can do. I'm sure there's some usage for an interface menu in an app. Yeah, definitely. Maybe a custom mini game or a quick remote computer. Yeah, actually people have asked about building mini games within those UI windows. That's definitely more complex. It would have to be quite a simple mini game. I mean, an example we have is we made like a little emoji Tamagotchi pet in one of the windows, so you could feed it, and I think you could feed it and you could pet it. stroke it so that it was happy, and it died if you didn't do that enough. It really depends on what you mean by a mini game, and you know, those kinds of things. We're always open to attempting to expand. Certainly post-release, the notion with Off Grid is it'll be a game that takes on a life of its own after the game is released, based on what you want in it, and what modders are making. So our plan really is to kind of make a load of stuff like that, and expanding the UI and interfaces and device types and all that kind of stuff is definitely something that will be an ongoing project. So the thing I was going to show you is, if you didn't want to make all of your own stuff out of collections, architecture, I think there's pre-assembled rooms. Is that right? I don't know whether any of these are any good, to be honest. Some of these are really old and kind of ropey. But I know that Sophie's been making some better ones. But the answer is, you know, there'll be some. There you go. This has got some broken stuff in it, but it's an example. You know, like there's an oldie room that you can drag and drop in, and then you could connect that up with a corridor that you really wanted to put in there. You know, just snap that in place correctly. Looks like my snap settings are set quite fine, so you know, you might set that to 0.5 instead, so that it all snaps a bit better. Yeah, like that. And then we want an elevator shaft at the end of that row. You know, you just basically start to block out your level with these pre-assembled room parts. And then you can flesh that out further with, you know, you like delete a couple of these faces. Oh, yeah, right. Well, I need to break the prefab connection to do that. Didn't want to do that. So, Spanner Spy says, so, if so, an app that can interact with elevators could be cool. Oh, right, yeah. No, that's a good point, actually. You could get, like, the elevator maintenance app. I mean, elevators have functioning doors on them, so, like, at the very least, what you could do is you could open the door, create a noise or distraction or something as an interest point for a guard in an elevator, and then shut the doors on them and lock them in there. And then, yes, potentially, although I can't guarantee this will be in there, you could teleport them to the wrong floor, so that when you open the door, they can only come out at that level. So yeah, you could definitely make an app that only targets hackable devices with the name elevator or something similar to that. Certainly, it's a good idea, actually. You should take note of that as an app idea and make it for us. I think that sounds good. I want to see that in a mod, definitely. Yeah, I think we've kind of covered that stuff there with how you knock up a level like that. That's how you do it in a really ugly way, clearly. But I've put a load of rubbish in here now, haven't I? Get rid of this. Blah. There you go. I think that's probably okay. Right, we'll compile the shaders for this level as well. Well, no, let's try networking it and see whether the shaders on not connected. Oh, yeah, it's not connected. Search for game. Start. Bop, bop, bop. No, that's still pink stuff there. All right. I wonder what is it? The mouse? It's the same angle as the mouse, isn't it? It's got the same angle as the mouse cursor? That would be weird. Well, I think it's a weird draw call to do with the mouse cursor, but that's not occurring in any other level. Odd. Well, just to make sure, we're going to build the, where is it, off grid, build asset bundles, build level changes, detected. Alright, what we'll do is we'll open a different scene. Levels. Yeah, I'm going to jump around a bit and go to hotel level quickly and then come back. Don't save. Yeah. Right. I mean, talking about building geometry, here is a good example of grey box level that Soph's been working on. And you know, you can see the grids here. This is all using Pro Builder and Pro Grids to create interesting geometry and shapes, and then you can end up cutting sections out and putting, you know, more complex geometry into it. You got a huge amount of options when it comes to this stuff, and you can make some really interesting stuff with some basic shapes. It's quite cool. Right, but I was not opening that to show it to you. I was just opening it to clear the scene. No, I don't want to open the project. Open the scene. Levels. Head back to the workplace. Yeah. So Spano Spy says, I know there's hackable vending machines. What's the capabilities of hackable objects mod-wise? That's a really good question. That's a pretty in-depth question that I can give you the basics on and point you to another episode of the dev stream that goes in depth. Basically, hackable devices are extremely moddable. Anything can be a hackable device. It doesn't have to be a vending machine. Doesn't have to be a computer. You know, you could make a hackable picture frame here if you wanted. If we want to make this an IoT picture frame, we would literally just on the right hand side here add a component for hackable object, and then that gives us a whole bunch of stuff. Is it powered? Is it active? Is it set to a mock? and then you get this list of Unity events that you can add in. And then a Unity event is anything in Unity. So literally, on powering the device on powering the smart picture frame on, you could turn on a bunch of lights. So in runtime, you'd choose the object that you want it to control. That might be the picture frame itself. Let's go. No, hang on. Probably have to find it here. We drag the picture frame itself in there, and then we choose what function. We changing the game object by making it broadcast or set something active. So setting active, you could make it. You could turning it on. You could set active false or true based on that bool there. That bools true or false are often shown by a tick box, or transform. You could kind of change its parent. So if you wanted to create a magnet or something like that, you could change the parent of an object. You could make it invisible by doing something with the mesh filter or the renderer, and then we have all of the kind of more interesting stuff that we've set up in terms of hackables for coroutines and bits and pieces. You can, like, if you've got something that's got a particle effect on it, so like if you wanted this picture frame when it's, so the amok state is when you've hacked something and you've broken it, essentially. The idea is kind of every device has a blue screen of death mode, and that can cause various different things, whether that's making a vending machine spit cans everywhere, or a printer set on fire, or a coffee machine send steam everywhere, or a hand dryer heat the room up. All of those are what we call amok states, AMOK, and those states are the thing running out of control. And so you can set up particles, you can set up animations, you can set sounds to trigger, and so the hackable devices can be anything, and they can use, I don't want to say anything in Unity, but a large proportion of the functionality that Unity provides as an engine. So quite moddable is the answer. Quite moddable to the extent that I definitely haven't pushed them as far as I should have yet. There's loads of space for us as designers to push them further, and hopefully you as modders even further than that. I'll quickly point you to the episode that I was talking about. If you go to youtube.com/offgridthegame, there's a playlist that we have for modding off-grid.
It's streaming and now.
Whoa! Oh, that's weird. It's just so meta. It's a stream inside a stream. Poning your coffee machine. I think that is how to set up poning your coffee machine, setting up particle effects. I think this episode goes over a lot of that stuff. Spanish Spice says, I love the amok state already. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, it's nice because it's pretty straightforward. It tells you exactly what it says on the tin. This thing is broken, and as we all know, ACAB, all computers are broken. I think how to write a hackable device. So that's how to set up particle effects. Got how to write a hackable device as well. That's probably another useful one for getting your head around hackable objects. And bear in mind that, like, these both kind of 2 and 3 hour long streams, and they only really scratch the surface. So it'll give you an impression of how to do most of this stuff from here's where to get started, but it won't give you the full remit of what's possible, that's pretty exciting, really, that's the case. And it's why I'm doing these streams so regularly, for a couple of hours at a time usually, because there's so much to modding off grid. There's so much there that we're at 35 plus hours, I think, of modding streams, and we're gonna be doing this for a lot longer than that. So there's loads to learn. There's loads for you to teach me how to make even more interesting things with, because, like I say, we made tools that are more powerful than we could necessarily imagine the usage of. So exciting times. So I'm gonna remove that component because I don't actually want this thing to be a hackable device. Yeah, remove component. We'll try building asset bundles here. We'll see if we get that weird whatchamacallit, mouse cursor image thing. Spy says, might have a go at implementing an app that replicates else Heartbreak, the slurp function, which allowed it to travel the player between connected devices. Nice. Yeah, I need to get around to playing else Heartbreak. We're gonna do a series, I think, so that, because I'm more than aware that this mod stream is a very niche thing. It interests a small proportion of our players. Most of you folks out there aren't gonna make mods. Spy sound like perfect candidate for doing so. So what I'm going to do to kind of create some content that, while we're still in development, appeals to people that aren't necessarily modders, is I'm gonna play other hacking games with some of my mates who got in trouble for various computer-related crimes over the years, and we're going to talk about them from the perspective of IRL hacking, how games represent hacking in interesting ways, why games don't usually represent hacking in a realistic way, and why that is a good thing, because you can go and pop shells on boxes in a VM in a safe lab environment without needing to leave the same seat that you sit at to play your video game. So why would you want to play a video game that simulates it? So yeah, we'll talk about like why principles and culture are the important things that video games should inject and represent in a hacking game. So yeah, I'm going to start doing that, and Else Heartbreak is top of the list, really. It's one that multiple folks have said I should get around to playing. I've watched some gameplay videos and some walkthroughs, and it looks very cool. It does, certainly. So yeah. HackMud or HackNet? Yeah, I think both, actually. I think from my perspective, HackMud is more interesting than HackNet, because again, like I was saying about culture, kind of HackMud explores kind of IRC culture. I need to play more of it to get my head around. I did some of the very basic stuff to do with the cracking puzzles. But it's nice that it's sort of that collaborative cracking stuff, and who you can trust and whether they're gonna screw you over, that kind of stuff. That's all good. And HackNet, I like the way that HackNet used Unix commands as its main verbs in the game, if you will, but I feel like it didn't really take it very much further. And the story was interesting enough, but I think I'd like to do a Let's Play series on that to see what people actually make of it. You know, in a chat, kind of like let's analyze this, because when I played it, I wasn't really thinking too hard about it. But Spanish Spy says can't wait to see those. Cool. So those would be interesting streams. That's good to hear. And what we might do is we might also do a companion series called like how can I hack ... and look at some basic techniques, so that we kind of bridge that whole thing of, you know, here is how you hack in Off Grid, here's how you make mods in Off Grid about hacking, and then on the other hand, here is how other hacking games have represented hacking, and here is why talking about hacker culture is important and interesting. And then finally, I was thinking that we would do something along the lines of, yeah, actually looking at, oh, how do I set up VirtualBox and Kali or Blackarch or some other pen testing distro, and how do I run Nmap, or, you know, some of those kinds of fun bits and pieces, just looking at the basics of hacking tools and network tools. But that's something that I'm not an expert in, so again, I bring in some of my mates who you might know from being featured cameo characters in the game, such as March or Infodocs, Darren, or Pathfinder, or Spoonsy, or Jake, or Mus, or Lowry. Get them in to be our guides into those things. So those are those asset bundles built. If building on the main line didn't fix it, I'm uncertain whether we'll get rid of it, but I think it's worth having a quick look see. Right. So, oh wait, the Unity icon has disappeared. No. Right. Hit start to network. What about Night Team 4? NITE Team 4, says Hulkman. Was that a game? Or what's Night Team 4? I have to Google that. Oh, it's a game. Okay. Night Team 4 game. Oh, I think I have seen this advertised. Yeah, and this is meant to be very simulative. That would be good to play. It's quite expensive, isn't it? Yeah, that looks interesting. I think that would be a good one to play, to see whether I need to eat my words over the notion of putting realistic hacking in a game not being an important thing to do, because maybe if you make, you know, like people play flight simulators all the time, you know, people genuinely learn how to fly aeroplanes using flight simulators, in fact. And Night Team 4 has like Metasploit modules, and like, yeah, has the real names of the tools and the real settings that you'd use and the flags that you'd set them up. Good point. I will put that on my list. So we've said what? HackMud, HackNet, Else Heartbreak, My brain is not letting me type. Hackmud, hacknet, else heartbreak. (19.4). Yeah, I might be surprised by that one. I kind of looked at it and went, oh, that's a bit, you know. It looked a little bit like a kind of, well, it looked like everything that Hacknet was attempting to do in terms of using Unix commands and taking that to the nth degree and placing all of the official app names and this, that, and the other in. I mean, I think you ran Wireshark in it and stuff like that, from what I could tell. I'm up for being surprised by it, is all I can say. So yeah, good suggestion. Right, so back to app stuff. You can, it's really annoying, this pink stuff in the corner, but this is the level that I've got this stuff in. SpanoSpy asked, like, can you get dialogues up or whatever else? So an example is the iCalculator. I've got this little modal that pops up. You have no entries in your calendar yet. You can set modal dismiss modes and accept, reject buttons, and those can do different things. So we could get a modal pop up like that with yes, no on it. I think yeah, that's how I'm doing that at the minute. If we jump into the source, oh, this is a pain. Yeah, if we jump into the source files, and we open up some of those apps in Notepad++. Oh yeah, let's put some music on. This is another app that I've made. I told you I'd not done anything with the app system. I have. I've just done really basic stuff, whereas Pontus has done interesting things with quite extensive use of the API. I made iTunes, EYE tunes, which just turns the music on and off. Right. Going into assets. Here we go. Pardon me. Levels. So I've got some level specific apps. Workplace. Content. Apps. Yeah, and here's where all the details for iCal, iClock. So we were like, yeah, let's put iCalendar to do something. It's not going to open bloody. Well, it is going to open in Atom, but just not on a screen that I can see it on, and I can't be bothered to Google right now. I have to get it back. So in the minute, set up modal or page. At the minute, all it does is it shows a UI pop up. You have no entries in your calendar yet. I think I can do something more involved than that. So if we went to the mission script, hang on, yeah, pardon me, open the mission script. Now, this is a long script. I'm going to have to confirm root mode or message type. Yeah. Let's just steal a modal that I've written somewhere else. Basically, UI show modal message confirm root. Yeah. I think that should cover it. We're just going to basically do copy pasta here. Oh, I wonder whether you, oh, now I've got to check that file out. Come on. Oh, it's the app that I'm after, isn't it? Workplace, apps, iCal. iCal Lua. Check out. Okay. So what we're going to do is you're just going to drop this pop-up in there. We'll probably comment this one out. Oh no. Confirm root modal is the one that we want. Yes, it is. Well, that's interesting. That's ugly. Yeah, okay, that's better. Just out of purely wanting it to be slightly more readable, we'll move that stuff around. So we've just changed some Lua. All we do now to see whether that works for that app is we hit stop and start, and it will reread the Lua file contents. Right, iCal. Yep, and so that pulls up a modal that we've got yes and no in. And you can then get that yes and no to do anything in in the API. Like it's pretty unlimited. It's quite powerful. So if we hit yes here, it pulls up a problem because I'm referencing something in that script that isn't in the calendar. It's only in the mission script elsewhere because we literally just copy pasted. But you could make it throw Spectrum on and visualize certain types of data, or you could make it spawn guards, you could make it start a conversation of some kind. You kind of sky's the limit, really. So yeah, I think this is probably a good place to stop. I'm gonna switch it off as like this ugly scene and open different level, I think. But that gives you everything really that you need to know. Do kind of let me know what you think. Otherwise, ask questions if you've got any more questions. Hulkman says, are you thinking of making the game open world? Short answer is no. Not only because the mission structure works better as a kind of building to building thing, where you've got this set objective of getting into a given building, finding documents within it and getting to the top of it and leaking the documents over your mesh net. It's one of those things that's not worth us trying to attempt at the size of studio we are. You know, like I am one of 2 designers, and there as a team there are kind of roughly 4 or 5 of us at any given time. There's one dedicated programmer, Pontus, my co-dev. He's a designer developer, and I'm a sort of designer developer. I'm not a brilliant programmer. I wouldn't put myself up there as a programmer by trade. So you know, like our scope is something that we have to be very tight on. You know, I can see why you asked the question. Like, I genuinely could see why Off Grid would work well as an open world game, but we're choosing different battles. We're trying to make all of the hacking and devices and the way that those things react intricate and interesting. Is our plan. Spanner Spy says, we'll have a look at that dialogue thing and see how far it can be pushed, as long as the wiki is enough to go by for now. Waiting for the game to be released. Yeah, cool. Well, if you weren't one of our backers, which got the access to the modding tools as an early sort of first access thing, then keep an eye out. Stay tuned in the Discord, because we're going to be finding ways to open stuff out to people much more expansively. So we'll be doing beta testing, kind of closed betas and open betas, getting people in for short periods of time to test certain content and features, but also then folks who show an interest in modding during those periods, will roll them into longer term testing options if they're keen on playing with the modding tools pre-release with us. So yeah, do give us a shout. Cool. I was gonna open up another scene, but I don't think I necessarily need to. I just wanted to get this pink stuff off the screen. Well, thanks very much for listening, and for watching, and for asking questions. That's much appreciated. This will be up on this on the YouTube for posterity as well, so you've got that there. And I linked to a few different things in the chat, so if you want to review the chat on Twitch or elsewhere, then you can see some of the older episodes that cover some things in more detail. Spanner Spy says, it's been a pleasure. I'm really glad that you enjoyed it. I'm glad that I got to cover the things that you were asking about in the Discord earlier. And by no means is that me kind of done covering those subjects, you know, apps and whatever else. We'll definitely come back to it, and we can expand on it and go in more depth at another point, as and when you're ready, and I'm ready. Yeah, we'll keep on digging into things in more and more depth, just incrementally. Because as you can see, there's only so much that you can cover in an hour and a half, 2 hour stream. So we've got to be selective and break it up. Cool. The only other thing I was going to say is, if you haven't done it already, obviously like and subscribe on any of these channels here, and wishlist the game. Tell your friends to wishlist the game if you've wishlisted it already. Like, even if they're not 100% certain they'd like the game, like, tell them that, well, wishlisting it will help this game do well, and I'd like to see them make some cool post-release expansions. So if you wishlist it, it'll help the game do well going forward. And so you'd be helping me enjoy this game in the future. Just tell them that. They'll be fine. So yeah, thanks again for coming around to see the stream. We do this once every 2 weeks, so we'll be here in 2 weeks again we might be doing a let's play of a hacking game. We'll see. I'll see who's available. Yeah, I'll look forward to speaking to you all again soon. Thanks very much.